Stand against corruption. Join the call now.
Tonight on First at 9, this Thursday the 12th of September 2024. First round ends. Postal voting for the 2024 presidential election concludes. 77% of official polling cards delivered to voters, says the Postal Department. Too low to grow. Sri Lanka's current tax targets under the IMF debt restructuring agreement are too low, says expert. Calls for higher taxes to encourage rapid economic growth and political stability. Models of growth. With only 9 days remaining until the presidential election, presidential candidates present their respective models for the development of the country.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. Independent presidential candidate President Ranil Wickremesinghe assured that he will reduce the cost of living in the country through appropriate measures such as strengthening the rupee. Addressing an election campaign rally, the head of state requested the public to provide him a mandate, adding that he possesses the best policies to take the country forward.
An election campaign rally under the theme Pull One Sri Lanka to support independent candidate President Ranil Wickremesinghe ahead of the upcoming presidential election was held in Sainthamaruthu last evening.
එදා එතුමා විභාගය ලියලා එතුමා distinction marks අරගෙන පෙන්නවා.
Ranil Wickremesinghe accepted the challenge and turned the situation around. However, Sajith Premadasa ran away. The president even said that he is suitable for the Olympics. This is not the time to conduct experiments. Within the next 5 years, we have to resurrect the country and its economy, which are in a state of collapse. We always support the leader who does good things.
මංගිල්ලා සිටිනවා. අපි හැමදාම හොඳ දේවල් කරන්න නායකයාට අපි හැමදාම සහයෝගය දෙනවා.
වෙනත් කවුරුවත් මේ වගකීම බාර ගන්න නැති වෙලාවේ මේක බාරගත්තා. සජිත් එවලේ කිව්වහම අපිට බාර ගන්න බෑ.
I accepted the responsibility when there was no one else to accept it. Sajith Premadasa said they are unable to take responsibility for this mess. What is he saying now? Is it only now that he is feeling the pain of the people? He said that he would reduce fertilizer prices. Were you able to give fertilizer to the farmers when they were really in need? That is my question to both Sajith and Anura Kumara. We had to take difficult and unpopular decisions. We had to increase the VAT. All of you blamed me. However, things changed as we expected within 6 months. Our income increased and the rupee strengthened. I was able to support the reopening of most of the shops that remained closed due to the economic downturn. All of these measures are temporary. We have to ensure economic stability going forward. We have to earn more foreign reserves by converting our economy into an export-oriented economy. We have to think about whether we are going to move forward by thinking anew. I solved the important issue of the Muslim community. I will legalize the right to bury. The others talk about matters like these only during elections. I started to talk about this after completing the task assigned to me. The bill only needs the approval of the parliament. Even I accept that the cost of living is high. I will strengthen the rupee and reduce the cost of living further. Why couldn't both Anura and Sajith, who claim that the cost of living is high, accept the responsibility of the government and take measures to reduce that? I've already taken the responsibility to take the country forward. Are we going to hand over the country's economy to people like them? Let's strengthen turn the economy. I have plans, but I need the mandate. There is no one else capable of doing this task. Sajid Premadasa only knows to provide things free of charge. They ran like cowards earlier, and now they are trying to secure the presidency to enhance their well-being. I took over the responsibility by considering your future. My house was also torched as a result of that. Please cast your vote in front of the symbol gas cylinder on the 21st of September. If not, there will not be a future for this country.
ඔබේ අනාගතය දිහා බලලා සෙප්තැම්බර් 21 වෙනිදා ගෑස් සිලින්ඩර් ළඟින් කතරේ ගහන්න කියනවා. නැත්තම් ගෑසුත් නැහැ අනාගතයක් නැහැ.
Meanwhile, another rally pledging support to independent candidate President Ranil Wickremesinghe was held in Piliyandala this evening.
මම හිතන්නේ මේ ස්ථානයේ ඉඳගෙන අපේ
Gotabaya Rajapaksa pledged in this place that he is going to reduce taxes. What happened after that tax reduction? Do we need a repeat of that situation? I'm not trying to be popular by making these statements. I'm telling the truth. In 2020, it is only me who said that the country requires $6 billion. However, no one listened to that. I can tell the same truth again. If you repeat the same thing, the dollar will surge to 500 rupees. It will be a world record. Sajid Premadasa says he is ready to give everything that is available free of charge. He claims that Anur Kumar and I have struck a deal to defeat him. Why does he think that? Because he knows that he is going to lose. There is no point for voting him. I would like to remind that voting for Sajid Premadasa and Namal Rajapaksa is similar to supporting Anur Kumar Dissanayake. Please vote for your political party. If you are from the UNP, please vote for its candidate. Please vote in front of the gas cylinder. If not, there won't be any gas in the country and the dollar will surge to 500 rupees.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
කවුද ඔයා මෙච්චර ලස්සන්ට වෙනස් කළේ?
වෙනස් මනුස්සෙක්. දිලිත් වෙනස් මනුස්සෙක්. රටක් වෙනස් කරන්නට තරුවෙන්.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්.
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the Sarvajana Balaya, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa assured that his government will establish a special presidential task force to strengthen and develop the tea industry if elected to office. Addressing a rally in the Gold district, Premadasa said that an SJB-led government is committed to creating a golden era for the country's tea industry.
An election rally pledging support to the leader and the presidential candidate of the Sarvajana Balaya, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, was held in Baddegama.
As of today, there is no difference between the United National Party and the National People's Power. Their manifestos entirely consist of proposals we presented during the previous election and those of the UNP manifesto. Therefore, I request that you take it to heart that the time has arrived to make Sajid Premadasa victorious.
We will establish a special presidential task force to strengthen and develop the tea industry. While protecting the industry, steps will be taken to provide a 50-kilogram fertilizer bag to the tea smallholders at 5,000 rupees. From the 21st of September onwards, a government led by us will dedicate ourselves to creating the golden era of the tea industry. Anur Kumar Dissanayake, who talks about tackling corruption, was the chairman of the committee appointed by the government of good governance to tackle corruption. What did he do during his tenure? The Sarvajana Balaya was the only party that brought those who bankrupted the country before the law. 4 members out of the 5-member Supreme Court judge bench ruled that the wrong economic policies implemented by Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa made the country bankrupt. It was Sarvajana Balaya who filed that case. Please hand over the country's responsibility to the son of Ranasinghe Premadasa and his team. We will create a developed era in this country.
Now, leader and presidential candidate of the National People's Power, Anur Kumar Dissanayake, says that only his party has a unified political movement anchored in coherent policies and shared goals, which is essential for the country's recovery and advancement. Addressing a rally in Gold today, Dissanayake further emphasized that for meaningful progress, politics should be based on shared policies rather than opportunistic shifts in allegiance. Another election rally in support of the leader and presidential candidate of the National People's Power, Anurukumara Dissanayake, was held in Galle today.
Everyone around Sajid Premadasa and Ranil Wickremesinghe are individuals who have and might switch parties at any time. However, there are no such politicians on our side. They even invited us to take them in, but we declined, as we have clearly stated that we will never align with corrupt politicians. We are committed to gathering people of integrity who are dedicated to the country.
In the past, the strength of political parties was often demonstrated by the politicians who changed sides. When politicians switched parties, it was perceived that those parties were strong. However, now when new members join a party, people view it differently. Therefore, this unethical political culture should be eradicated. Our country's politics should be based on policies. If someone joins a party, it should be because of shared policies and goals. A united political movement grounded in policy is necessary for the country's recovery. The National People's Power is the only party with such a cohesive team.
Meanwhile, another rally of the National People's Power was held in Derana today.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe is challenging me on multiple fronts and I don't understand what has happened to him. Politics has become a joke to him, but for us it is serious as we address the public's issues. Look at President Wickremesinghe's behavior. He seems to be enjoying himself, treating politics as a joke. As a result, he is challenging me in various ways at different rallies. For instance, he poses questions from Valimada and I respond from Derana. This is not the right approach. Let's have face-to-face discussion and debate the policies we propose for the country's development. This issue needs to be addressed.
Presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Namal Rajapaksa, says a national program will be implemented under his leadership as the President of Sri Lanka to support the country's farmers and growers by facilitating their operations. While highlighting the political turmoil in Bangladesh, Rajapaksa said that a conspiracy is in place to oust nationalist leaders in the region. Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna's meeting of the Bulat Sinhala electorate was held last evening under the patronage of the party's presidential candidate Namal Rajapaksa.
අද හැම අපේක්ෂකයෙක්ම තමන්ගේ පැතිවන ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශනයේ ආර්ථිකයේ ගොඩනගන වැඩපිළිවෙලට Port City එක සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා.
Most of the presidential candidates have mentioned Colombo Port City in their election manifestos. Earlier it was said that this project cannot be implemented. They mocked Mahinda Rajapaksa for constructing the port city through land reclamation. However, now Port City has been named as one of the hubs of economic development in most of the election manifestos. They have also mentioned the Hambantota Port and the Mattala Airport. They are also proposing the construction of new airports. My problem is whether they are capable of making their program a reality. We have to move forward with a sustainable plan. A government led by us will launch a national program that is aimed at providing reasonable prices for the produce of the farmers and facilitating the process of finding buyers for the produce in these electorates. We will also provide subsidies for the farmers.
Meanwhile, the Avissavela electorate meeting of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held with the participation of the party's presidential candidate Namal Rajapaksa.
Even though the economy was in the process of stabilizing, the government of Gotabaya Rajapaksa was toppled strategically. To protect the government and the country, Gotabaya Rajapaksa had to step down. Bangladesh is the best example. There were no economic problems in Bangladesh. Most of the Sri Lankans shut their factories here and reopened them in Bangladesh. They said that Bangladesh is better than Sri Lanka. However, what happened? The Bangladeshi Prime Minister, who was elected to the office for the fourth time by an overwhelming majority, had to face a situation similar to that of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It is clear that there is a conspiracy in place to oust nationalist leaders in our region. Please keep your trust in us. We will not take any decision that is harmful to the country.
Presidential candidate of the Sarvajana Balaya, Dilith Jayavira, is of the view that the content of the election manifestos of the three mainstream presidential candidates is the same despite their efforts to portray them as otherwise. He emphasized that in contrast, the strategic plan of his alliance is different from each of them and represents the ideologies of Sri Lankans of every social status. A rally of the Dilith Gamata series of electorate rallies was held in Nittamuwa yesterday under the patronage of Sarvajana Balaya presidential candidate Dilith Jayavira.
ලංකාවේ මේ ජනාධිපතිවරණයේ තියෙන වෙලාව වෙනකොට තමුන්නාන්සලා දන්නවා දකුණු ආසියානු කලාපයේ අවට රටවල් වල මොකද්ද දැන් වෙන්නේ කියලා.
While Sri Lanka is conducting a presidential election, you are aware of the situation in our neighboring countries in the South Asian region. When we were in a difficult situation, we obtained a loan from Bangladesh. However, Bangladesh, from whom we borrowed a loan, has now collapsed. Similar to Sri Lanka, an insurrection of the youth was created to oust Bangladesh's former Prime Minister from power. Now Bangladesh is experiencing fuel queues and 10 to 15 hour power interruptions. In a few more days, Bangladeshi people might even die of hunger. There are conspiracies afoot to destabilize this region. A similar situation arose in Sri Lanka, but it was not completely successful. However, some political parties are attempting to complete the destruction of Sri Lanka in this presidential election. For a person who only has 3 rupees in hand, receiving 300,000 rupees appears as if they have received 30 million rupees. Some political parties view the crowd as their rallies in the same manner. What they are attempting to accomplish through these rallies is to drag this country into the same situation as Bangladesh, a lawless, uncontrolled, anarchic and unstable country without a state.
A considerable number of candidates are contesting this year's presidential election, and 3 or 4 of them are representing traditional political parties. The others are only contesting as proxies for those parties in order to support them. 3 mainstream candidates presented 3 manifestos. However, the content of all 3 is the same. Only their covers are different. One is green, one is yellowish green, and the other is purple. But their content is still the same. The content of all 3 of these manifestos can be taken onto a single document, and the content of that document can be distilled down to a single page. That page is page 230. That is the page that will destroy the country. In contrast, we have presented a strategic plan that is practical. We met with people of every social status, from farmers, fishermen, laborers and civil servants to the wealthiest of entrepreneurs. Therefore, this strategic plan represents the ideologies of every group of people in this country. It also contains a time frame for its implementation. Once you cast your votes on the morning of the 21st of September, since a second round of counting will be necessary, election results will be released on the morning of the 23rd. If the symbol star is not victorious on that day, one thing is certain: you would have begun your descent from a third world country to an even worse situation. However, if the symbol star is victorious, your lives will be changed from that day on. And with that, here are some more of the latest developments in the political front ahead of the presidential poll. As of today, over 35% of voters are still undecided as to whom they should vote for. Therefore, if you desire the revival of this bankrupt nation, we request that the people of this country make our national strategic plan victorious.
Our manifesto is themed A Wealthy Nation, A Beautiful Life. Many people ask where we will secure the funds to achieve this goal. We will create a government that will spend the people's earnings wisely. We will generate revenue for the state by making the people wealthy. Then we will reinvest that revenue for the betterment of the people. The first step of this process will be initiated on our side, not on the people's.
The IMF is the reason the country has stabilized to this extent. If we compromise this program, we will face a massive challenge. Therefore, we must understand that a group that is capable of continuing this program must come to power. I do not know how this program can continue if it is entrusted to Sunil Handunetti.
People living in rural areas are of the view that Ranil is the leader who revived the country from the crisis. Therefore, we firmly believe that President Ranil Wickremesinghe will win the presidential election. That is what should happen. There is no need to elect other leaders in order to conduct experiments.
කවුරුහරි අහනවා නම් ඇයි සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසට ඡන්ද දෙන්න ඕන කියලා ඉවරලා සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මේ රටේ මීට පෙර ජනාධිපති වෙලා ඉඳලා නැහැ. එයා එක්ක තමයි දක්ෂ කණ්ඩායම ඉන්නේ.
දැන් ඔය හොඳ ටීම් එකයි කියවන සජබ. ඔන්න දැන් මේ පැත්තෙන් ගියා පොහොට්ටුවෙන් මහාචාර්ය ජීල් පීරිස්. නාලක කොට හේවලා ඩලසලපන ඔක්කොම ගියා. මහාචාර්ය ජීල් පීරිස් එයා අවුරුද්දකයි මාස 3ක් අධ්‍යාපන ඇමති. කිසිම වැඩපිළිවෙලක් තිබුණේ නැහැ. ඉසුරුපාය ගේට්ටුවේ හැමදාම වහලා පොලිසිය 200ක් ඇතුලේ. ළමයි පාරේ හැමතිස්සෙම. විශ්වවිද්‍යාලවල. අන්න මහාචාර්ය උපකුලපති ප්‍රශ්න විසඳුවද? නෑ.
අද වෙනිසියුලාව මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? දැන් වෙනිසියුලාව තෙල් අපනයනය කරන රට. ආර්ථිකය කඩාවැටලා. ඇයි? ආර්ථිකයේ දැක්මක් නැති අය බලයට ආවා. සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම මැනේජ්මන්ට් එක වැටිනා. ඉතින් අපිට මේක තේරුම් ගන්න බැරි නම් අපි ආයි ප්‍රපාතයකට යන්නේ.
ගන්න තෝරණේ තීරණය බොහොම පැහැදිලි. මේ ආපු ගමන් මග ඉස්සරහට යනවද තව? එහෙම නැත්නම් ආපහු හැරිලා මහා විනාශයක් කරගන්නවා. ඔච්චරයි අපිට ගන්න තියෙන තීරණේ. කවුරු කොයි කයි වාරු ගැහුවත් රට වැටිච්ච වෙලාවේ ගොඩ දාලා මේ වෙනකන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ අද මැතිවරණ පවත්වනකන් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයාගේ දූරදර්ශී නායකත්වයේ නිසා.
The two additional dates allocated for postal voting for the 2024 presidential election concluded today. Meanwhile, with only 9 days remaining until the polls open on the 21st of this month, the Postal Department stated that 77% of official polling cards have been delivered to registered voters. Postal voting for the 2024 presidential election concluded today. 712,319 government employees were eligible to cast postal votes in this year's election. Postal voting commenced on the 4th of this month and continued on the 5th and 6th. Yesterday and today were allocated as additional dates for postal voting for voters who were unable to cast their votes on the 3 initial dates. Accordingly, government employees arrived at district election offices yesterday and today to mark their postal ballots. Only 9 days are left until polling for the presidential election commences on the 21st of September. 17.1 million voters are eligible to vote in this year's election. The Department of Posts commented on the delivery of official polling cards to voters.
ජනාධිපතිවරට අදාළ ලැබී ඇති නිල ඡන්ද දැනීම් පත්‍රිකා සංඛ්‍යාවෙන්
As of now, 13.2 million official polling cards for the 2024 presidential election have been delivered to the residences of voters. This amounts to 77% of the total number of polling cards. We intend to continue the delivery of polling cards to voters' residences on Friday and Saturday. After Saturday, the 14th of September, polling cards will no longer be delivered to voters' homes. However, if a voter does not receive their polling card by next Saturday evening from the 18th of September onwards, such voters can go to their local post office, verify their identity and claim their official polling card. This service will be provided until the election day.
මැතිවරණ දිනේ දක්වාම
Star dishwasher Dali Hell ඉඳුල් පහසුවෙන් සේදේ. Star dishwasher magic tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Welcome back. The Executive Director and Fellow at the Institute for Health Policy, Dr. Ravi Rananeliya, believes that the tax targets Sri Lanka has set under its agreement with the International Monetary Fund are too low. Joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park with Indivari Amuvatta, Dr. Rananeliya stated that despite increased taxes, Sri Lanka remains a low-tax economy. This could potentially affect the nation's goals for rapid economic development and long-term political stability. He also noted that losing the IMF agreement would result in the loss of crucial capital and access to global markets. However, he added that as a sovereign nation, Sri Lanka has the capacity to renegotiate its agreement with the global lender.
The major question is the IMF, whether to continue, whether to renegotiate or to or to do away with this? Can Sri Lanka afford to do away with the IMF? What really should be our choice here?
I think my sense is that all the major political parties agree that we should remain in some agreement with the IMF. And I think it is unavoidable. As a sovereign country, we could break our agreement with the IMF and kick them out. But I don't think anyone will want to do that, because if we do that, we essentially lose access to all foreign capital. We will have significant problems accessing foreign markets. I think the real issue is the details of that agreement and what kind of partnership we have with the IMF and what should we be doing through that collective agreement. So I think that's really where the questions are. As far as my understanding, as a sovereign country, as a member of the IMF, we are always entitled to renegotiate with the IMF. There's nothing that says we cannot. If we want to stay in this, we probably should renegotiate the terms. I think what was done initially was a necessity, and so things may have done, for reasons of time and expediency to get it signed. But I think that, with time we can do better. I think the things that worry me about the current agreement, one is that the tax target is far too low. Now, this is a tax target which is mutually agreed. The government proposed it, the IMF accepted it.
Are you saying we need to have more taxes?
Yes. The current tax target is around 15% of GDP. I believe we reached about 12-13% this year. 15% of GDP still leaves us as essentially a low tax economy. And that low tax collection of 15% of GDP is not going to be sufficient to lay the basis for robust, sustained, rapid economic growth. And I think more importantly, from a political perspective, it will not provide the basis for long-term political stability of a regime. The 15% of GDP, first of all, it's low. Compared to other countries, what's our peer economy comparison? Well, we're talking about 18 to 25% of GDP. Now, why is 15% not enough beyond the fact that it's a low number? It's not enough when you consider that we blew up our debt. So in order to stabilize the debt, which is the IMF's primary concern, we have to make debt repayment on top of any haircuts we get on the debt from our creditors. The debt repayments are 7 to 8% of GDP. You do the math, 15 minus 7 or 8, it only leaves 7 to 8% of GDP every year to pay for all the things that government does. There was a government there was an administration that came in a few years ago with a manifesto promise. Manifestos don't mean anything, of course, but manifesto promise of 6% of GDP on education. Do you remember that?
6%.
Yeah. How do you do that with a government budget after debt repayment of 6 to 7?
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining and have a good night.